All right. Welcome to another episode of King Speak Podcast. All right, I'm First King. Now, today we're going to talk about single mothers and why many, if not most, high value men avoid marrying them, some of the issues with dating them, some of the issues that they have faced. And I'll start off by saying what you have to understand is that when men generalize on these shows and they talk about, well, you're done, you're cooked because you're a single mother, what they're doing is they're oversimplifying it because people are simple. And if you try to say too much or do too much at once, um, basically people will check out or their mind will be blown or it'll be too much stimulation for them and then they just move on to something else. Quite often these shows dumb things down in order to get you to actually watch because people watch, stuff that just isn't too complicated. What men are not truly saying is that, single mothers don't, have men to date. I'm not saying that at all. That happens. And it should happen because, some of the single mothers are very beautiful. Some of them are, good women. We're not necessarily talking about the ones who have, a bunch of different baby daddies. They still will have people in their DMs and trying to get at them and trying to be intimate with them. And even they will have some guys that would be willing to wife them. But here's the issue with that. Quite often, when it comes to single mothers with, multiple kids or single mothers with multiple baby daddies, what happens is that same single mother that will say, hey, I'm not worrying about it, y'all lying because I got all these men in my DMs, I got these men trying to date me, this, that, and the other. And that'll be true. But at the same time, that very same person last week, they was online talking about why is it always the guys I don't want that want me? That's what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that often disqualifies you from the types of men you want, from the rich man who wants a woman who can have his kid and doesn't have to deal with those things. And I'm going to go down a list of some of the things that men have found issues with and some of the background of these issues so therefore you can understand why, this can be a problem. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that men don't date single moms, and there's some guys who date mostly single moms. And here are some of the reasons why they do that. Because one, they know that they're not virgins because they have a kid, and it's difficult for you to say, now I'm not going to have sex with you, but I have a kid and I want you to, help me with this kid and being around this kid. Are you tripping? Are you on drugs? And, KG said that, you need to be trying to get that shit away. And it doesn't mean that, no, every woman who is a single mother shouldn't be just giving herself to any random person. But what it means is that if you find somebody that you actually like, somebody that you want to be with, trying to believe that they're going to wait until marry you, to be intimate, yeah, you tripping. You need to, put the bottle down or put that pipe down if that's what you think, because it's just not going to be the case. So like I said, going back to, we're not saying that, nobody wants you or anything like that. It's normally the types of people you want may not necessarily want you. And it's because of these things. So let me go down this list. Okay. First, competing with the child for priority. In many single mother households, the child becomes the center of the mother's world. All right. While it's understandable in a marriage, though, the husband ideally is supposed to be the head of the household. And a high value man is not going to be willing to in a relationship where he feels permanently second. All right. And, if you are a Christian, you're supposed to believe that it goes God, then, your husband, you, and then your kids. Now, it does not mean that your kids aren't supposed to have anything, that they're not supposed to have your love, that you're supposed to, if there's any food, that you're supposed to eat up all the food and they don't get any. It's nothing like that. But it does mean that he's supposed to come first. And most, not all, but most single mothers who especially have been single for a while, they have grown attached to their child, and especially if they have a male child, he basically becomes their man. And we're not talking about any, intimate stuff or any funny stuff, but he becomes their man. So therefore, you have a man trying to compete with a little boy who has been acting as your man, and then there becomes some issues. Second thing, presence or influence of the biological father. There's some guys who will only date single mothers if the father isn't in the picture or he's dead or in prison. Now, you have to realize that, if they want to co-parent, if there's visitation, it creates complications and tension. There may be unresolved feelings, competing influence over the child's upbringing, and the high value man, and for the most part, isn't going to tolerate this. Even a guy who doesn't make a ton of money, if he's an old school man, what goes on in his house, what goes on in his house. No other man's going to be telling, me how I'm supposed to run my household. And here's one thing I'm going to tell you. There's never going to be anybody's kid in my house spending the night or anything that I can't discipline. I'm sorry. They have to go back home, because it doesn't mean I'm going to try to beat the kid to death, but there's nobody in my house that I can't tell what to do. You just don't come there. That just don't happen. Now, dealing with the child's, behavior and discipline. I'm sorry, but you've seen online where women say, I'll discipline the kid. That's my kid. Yeah, that don't work for me. And most of the guys I know, that doesn't work for them either. You're not going to go through life and make all this money and have success and put in all this hard work only for you not to be able to tell a kid what to do in your house. You have to go run to some woman to discipline their kid. Nah, that just doesn't work. Now, number 4, you have built-in responsibilities. All right, without the authority, and you're supposed to support this child financially, and I don't care if the father's paying child support, still money that you're having to spend on this kid that you didn't help create. All right. And then there's emotions that you're supposed to put into it without any, legal authority. And it's a real difficult situation. Now, also number 5, dealing with the biological father's family. Now, there's somebody else in the picture who's trying to tug at the kid. They're trying to see the kid. They want to come to your house. They want to, have time with the kid. They want to have their little say-so. They want to be involved in decisions and all this other different stuff. I know you all have seen the thing online where the stepfather had raised the kid from when they were an infant or a young kid, and paid for all these different things, and now all of a sudden it's time for graduation, and everybody has a ticket but him. Biological father, aunts, all these other different people, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, or whatever has tickets, but he doesn't. So now you have all these people getting in the way. Now, number 6, emotional baggage and unfinished attachments. There's some single moms, they still holding that torch for that man. That baggage that they got from him too, the negative things he did to her. She's, reminded by the things that they've done. Every time she sees this man, she's reminded by the fact that she had sex with him. And this has nothing to do with being insecure or anything like that. No. It's just a fact. That happens. And women say, well, but I hate him. If you hate him now, you're going to have a damn bad attitude every time you think about him, every time you see him, and now I have to deal with that too. So either way, the emotional baggage is just a bad thing. And now you also may be, second fiddle. He may be the guy that got away, the guy that she wishes was different, all right, because she chose to have a kid with him. That means an awful lot, all right? You stupid if you decided to have a kid with somebody that you didn't care about. That means that you just, damn, you put the in dumb. Yeah, if you decide to have a kid with somebody that you didn't, care about, yeah, you put the in dumb. Number 7, cultural factors, especially in the African American community. We emphasize male leadership and respect in the home. A man who cannot discipline or lead or be first, he's emasculated. He doesn't have the respect that he needs, and eventually the relationship will falter because of that. Okay. There's also pressure from the extended family and concerns about building another man's legacy instead of your own. Where you want to have your own kids, and a lot of these, single mothers don't want to have any more kids, and they think you're just supposed to be fine with that. Now, finally, 8, there's just better options. I mean, there's some men who, like the, the family, structure, like the fact that she's likely going to be cooking because she has, kids to feed, like the fact that she may be more serious. However, women without kids, younger women, with fewer complications, that they don't have to, try to divide their time up, because it's another big thing. You get very little time with this woman. I mean, years back, dating single women, you got like from 7 to 9 at night, or from 8 to 9 at night. Or if she was up, later, you would get from 9 to 10, and that was it. Or you had to come after the kids, were asleep, or you had to be a part of that. And, you got basically when you guys went to the room. And, the mother trying to split up their time, but especially if she has multiple kids, trying to split up her time with the kids, and if she works too, and then with you, and even if she doesn't work, it becomes, all right, how much time, do am I paying for? And I say paying for, meaning that if you're, the one who's, paying for things, if you guys live together, or you're eventually going to live together, you got to realize, okay, what am I getting for my money and all my hard work? I get to take care of somebody else's kids. I get an hour a day with this woman, and then if she doesn't feel like doing anything, I get a few minutes a day. Is it worth it for me? That is what I'm talking about. This is what men are talking about when they are talking about dealing with single mothers. But because so many women view men as solely, supposedly, just providing things and don't really care what we get out of it, that's why so many women don't see it as an issue, because they're like, what's the difference? You're just supposed to provide and not want anything and not give a damn, and we don't supposed to care about you anyway. So what's the problem? So if you have that mindset, yeah, you won't see a man dating a single mom as an issue at all. Whereas when you look at all these different things, you have to see what the issue is. And it doesn't make a difference how hard you try. You cannot compete with the woman who does not have all of those potential issues in her, shall we say, wheelhouse. So with that said, as always, like, subscribe, make sure that you go through and comment and share this with other people, and just think about this. At the very least, you might be able to make some changes in your life if you are a single mother, to make things better, or at least to be able to understand it, so therefore you can reassure the guys that you like that you're not going to have to worry as much with me, because I get it and I know how to make things better. So as always, have a great day.